All right, now I'm going to blow you out. All right, so that's really loud. All right, so during Absalom's rebellion, see, Joab stayed loyal to David, and Amasa led the army against David. So why in the world would David let go of Joab and say, Amasa, you're going to take his place? That really doesn't make any sense. But because Amasa fought on the wrong side, but now Absalom's dead, and David essentially taps Amasa on the shoulder and says, okay, now you're going to command my army. And so David replaces Joab with Amasa, and after Absalom died. Okay, so really this was a shocking move. It's a shocking political move, and so why would he do this? Well, we have to go back in memory, and we have to remember, man, there's story after story after story about Joab. And see, David, again, as he's trying to pull everybody together, he's trying to unite the country, and he's trying to show kindness to everybody who sided with Absalom. So he's really making a strategic political move, and he's trying to win Judah back, and he's trying to heal the nation, but he's also trying to weaken Joab's power. Joab was a very powerful person, and remember, he's the one that terminated Absalom's life. And remember how David said nobody is to kill Absalom, and Joab knew that, and he did it anyway. And so Joab ignored the orders. And do you remember also how he rebuked David when David was grieving over Absalom? Now I could see, in some aspects, you're the king. You got to come back, and so I could see Joab, in some respects doing that. But he went overboard, rebuking David. Anyway, bottom line is David's the king, and Joab is not following orders, and so in truth, he's openly defying the king, and David knows that. And so I think this is why he's done this. Joab rebuked him right in public. The Bible says he did in front of everybody. And so I think David has hid all this in his heart, and now he's got the opportunity to put Joab down a notch, right? But he's got to be careful because Joab is powerful, and we're about to see how powerful that he is, and so um, so we're going to see if this was a good decision or not for David to appoint Amasa instead of Joab. And so Amasa, his appointment was a symbol of national reconciliation. And then some other things that Joab did. He killed Abner. Remember that? He killed Abner, threatening peace with the north. Uh, as far as Amasa, he was threatening unity with Judah, and Absalom, he killed him, threatening David's legitimacy. So every time David tried to unify the kingdom, Joab's violence really undermined it. And this is why replacing Joab was necessary for national healing. And David desperately needed a commander he could trust. Now, I don't know whether he could really trust Amasa because he had just sided with Absalom. So, I don't know. We're going to see how this all plays out. This is why we need to be filled with the Spirit. And of course, we see no record of David going to the Lord. We don't see any record of him. Maybe he was, I don't know, but we don't see that. And usually when you don't see them going to the Lord, then you see everything deteriorating. Okay, so in 2 Samuel 24, where we started, so David gives Amasa his first test, and he tells him, okay, assemble the men of Judah within 3 days, and then come back. And so really, perhaps you could look at this as like a test. David's going to test him, see whether he can do this or not. And so he fails. All right. And so he takes too long. And that's, so we're going to look at 2 Samuel 20, verse 5. And it says, so Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he tarried longer than the set time which he had appointed him. So he obeyed the king. He did what he was supposed to do, but he tarried longer than the set time. And David gave him 3 days. So this delay triggers a national crisis, right? And so because Amasa is late, and then you got Sheba's rebellion with Israel gaining momentum because he's got all of Israel, those 10 tribes, he's got them all, stirred up. So now David panics, maybe he's not being loyal to me. He doesn't know. There's no cell phones, there's no telegrams, there's no email. He doesn't know. And so he decides to bypass Amasa, and then he sends Abishai. Now, this gives Joab a chance to reclaim power. Okay? And so, but what I want us to really focus in on is all of this happened because of David's silence. Does anybody remember what I'm talking about? His silence? When was he silent? He was silent when Amnon raped Tamar. That's the root of all of this. And then what did we learn in Freedom Readers Friday? We learned that Jacob was silent when his daughter Dinah was raped and kidnapped. It says he was silent. It says he held his speech. He held his tongue. Okay, listen, there is a time that we have to stand up. There's a time that we have to rise up. And both of these men had rape involved with their daughters. And both of them were silent. And it led to Absalom's killing Amnon. Then it led to Absalom rising up against David. And what happened with Jacob is that his silence caused his sons to take retribution in their own hands, and they killed a whole city full of men that were really innocent. And God did not look kindly on that. And we went through all that last week, and that's why Simeon, his descendants were spread throughout Israel, and they were no longer a tribe. And then why Levi they were appointed eventually to the priesthood, but also they were divided. They were all over Israel, the Levites, and they had no land of their own. That's why. So there's a time when we need to stand up.
This made me think of it's like in the church, and I know it started in the Catholic Church, but now we know it's everywhere. Is churches or pastors being silent when there's not rape or whatever in the church, right?
Oh yeah. Well, like you're talking about the Catholic Church raping the priests, raping all these little boys and stuff.
Then years go by, and then these people get older.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was no justice, there could be for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Justice.
Mm-hmm.
For the kids.
Mm-hmm. So I really hope y'all pay attention to those two stories and what has transpired in their lives. And you think it's not going to happen to you? If it happened to two patriarchs in the Bible, why would it not happen to us? It does happen to us, and we need to stand up for truth. And we have to take a stand. And by golly, if you don't take a stand for your own family, who in the world is going to? There isn't anybody. So that really struck me when I read that for Freedom Readers about Jacob's silence. And then so when I read that about Jacob, it just reminded me about David. And I ask you, do you see what one person's sin can do? Now, I'm not trying to condemn anybody, but see, our sin affects people around us. Okay, it's going to affect our children. It's going to affect our grandchildren. It's going to affect our friends. It's going to affect our church. See, when one person does something here at church, it affects all of us. And so sin just destroys everything. And so we have to guard against sin. And because it just does nothing but just to kill, steal, and destroy. So Amasa's failure to do what his king said, his failure becomes the turning point of this whole chapter. So let's look at verse 6. And David said to Abishai, now shall Sheba, the son of Bichri, do us more harm than did Absalom. Take thou thy Lord's servants and pursue after him, lest he get him fenced cities and escape us. All right, so what's going on is David realizes Sheba is dangerous. He realizes these 10 tribes may come against him. And anybody who could get 10 tribes, together and have them obey him, that's a dangerous person. All right. And so Sheba's calling those 10 tribes to break away from Judah. And this is terrible. Okay. And this is the first spark of the division that is in 1 Kings chapter 12, where Israel is actually going to divide into two nations. And that's important for us to understand, because the rest of the Old Testament, Israel is going to be divided. And you need to know why. Okay. And this is why. So David realizes he's dangerous. He sees the immediate danger, and then he's not sure he can trust, and it's really pronounced Amasa instead of Amasa, because he did fight for Absalom, and now he's late coming back. So now David turns to Abishai, and so this quickly becomes a national emergency. And Abishai is also David's nephew by another sister. So Abishai is also I think he's Joab's brother. So this is convoluted, right? I mean, like the Civil War was, right? Brother against brother. So David told Abishai to lead the pursuit now in verse 6, because Amasa hasn't come back. All right, let's read verse 7. And there went out after him Joab's men, and the Harathites, and the Pelethites, and all the mighty men, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue after Sheba, the son of Bichri. All right, so it's really starting to get ugly. So see, there went out after him Joab's men. All right, see, Joab didn't take the back seat. Okay. And Joab, he's not riding off into the sunset. Oh, well, I had a great life. I had a great, boy, I was a good general. I'll go retire out in the countryside. No. Okay. This is getting ugly. So he's been fired by the king, but he's still in the fight. And so now the Harathites and the Pelethites, those are not Israelites. Those are not Jews. Those are hardened warriors that came to David in 1 Samuel when he was running from Saul. And remember, he ran to the Philistines to protect his life, and he got some of those Philistines over on his side. And so that's who these people are. These are hardened Philistines, but that are siding with David. And so now they're going to march out in rebellion against Sheba. And so this shows that evidently Joab still controls the army. And I thought about this, and if you've been in the military, you know the loyalty that you can feel to a competent leader. If that leader is competent and you have respect for them, that's how you lead an army, by respect. And if you got a sorry leader, which I had some, I wouldn't do a thing they said. And I was not very compliant all the time, and I paid for that. Believe me, I had a captain's mask because of that. But if they were a good leader, I would follow them and I would obey them. And so I see this here. They have respect for Joab, and they're not going to follow anybody else. And that's why they're willing to go to war and fight in a civil war, because of their loyalty to Joab. So this doesn't surprise me at all that Joab is still on top of things, really, and that these people are willing to follow him. And Amasa, he really has the title, but he has no power, right? And now Abishai has replaced him. He doesn't even know it. But the key here is who has the loyalty. It's not Abishai. It's not Amasa. It's Joab. He has the loyalty. So what is David going to do? This is a real predicament for David. All right, so let's read in verse 7. And there went out after him Joab's men and the Harathites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. All right, now uh, to you could think of the Harathites and the Pelethites as David's royal guard. Okay, and they fought with him, for years, and you could think of him as their personal bodyguards, and they were the men who were there when he was fighting giants, and they were the men who really secured the throne for him. And but again, they were like Philistines. Or it says, or Cretan origin, but they had been fiercely loyal to David, and they were highly trained elite warriors. They were sort of like the secret service in David's kingdom. So when they move, it means David is a huge threat to Sheba, and because this is a major military move. All right, and so when it said the verse 7, all the mighty men. So the mighty men moved out to in battle. They're moving out to attack Sheba. So they're mobilizing, and so this is a huge deal here. And so it says they went out of Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem was the capital, and that's where they mobilized. And Jerusalem is the political center for all of the nation. It's also the spiritual center because that's where the tabernacle was, and then it was the military command center because that's where the king lived. So, and who's going to return to Jerusalem? Jesus Christ is, and he's going to rule and reign from Jerusalem. And then we're supposed to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So when the army leaves Jerusalem, it signals that the entire kingdom is now focused on stopping Sheba. And they have to, because if he doesn't stop Sheba, then the nation's going to be divided right here. And so this is a kingdom level emergency. And in verse 8, when they were at the big chicken, which is in Gibeon, Amasa went before them. I was seeing if anybody's paying attention. Oh gosh, I'm just kidding. But what I thought of was the big chicken, because what they're saying is that's the landmark. Gibeon was the landmark. So it was like, okay, let's go to the big chicken. We'll mobilize at the big chicken, and then we'll move out from there, right? That's what I thought of. Okay, and everybody in North Georgia knows where the big chicken is. You always said go to the big chicken before GPS. Go to Marietta, go to the big chicken, and take a ride, or whatever. The big chicken was it. Okay, and you just knew where the big chicken was, and that's how you got anywhere, was based on the big chicken. So Gibeon is the landmark. It was the place that everybody knew, and they're going to meet there, and it was the public meeting place. So to continue in that verse, and Joab's garment that he had put on was girded unto him, and upon it a girdle with a sword fastened upon his loins in the sheath thereof, and as he went forth, it fell out. I'm going to read that again. And Joab's garment that he had put on was girded unto him, and upon it a girdle with a sword fastened upon his loins, and the sheath thereof. And as he went forth, it fell out. All right. So Amasa, he went to round up the men of Judah, right? And he didn't come back at the appointed time. And so here we find out where he is. And he went to this rallying point. He went to the big chicken. Okay, he went to Gibeon, and so he's stepping into his new role. He is presenting himself as David's appointed general, but Joab is there. And so it's describing what Joab is wearing, okay? And it seems to me that he's hiding his sword. All right? And then the strangest thing happens, the sword falls out. Now, I don't know whether this was on purpose or whether he didn't have it have it on right or what cuz he is a skilled warrior. So for his sword to fall out, that seems kind of strange. All right, but Joab, you know, he's the most disciplined warrior, that David's got. And not only that, he's a seasoned general for many, many years. So do you think his sword is just going to fall out? Yeah, I think he's a conniver is what he is. And really, in some aspects he's a deceiver. So something's up. And to be sure we have the picture in our heads right, I just want you to get it. David fired him. He replaced him. He replaced him with Joab's cousin, now David's nephew, uh, Amasa. And so Joab is going to face Amasa, and we're going to have to see what happens. So really, we have two cousins of Joab, two nephews of David, and and I can't remember if the one is his Joab's nephew or his brother, but anyway, they're all related. So probably a nephew. So David's trying to heal the kingdom, right? He's not trying to tear it apart. But see, Joab isn't going to go right off into the sunset because he's been a general for most of David's existence, and see, here's another thing: he knows David inside and out. He knows his tactics. He knows what he's going to do, and so he's been showing stubbornness and rebellion the whole time, right? And uh, and so why David thought he was going to ride off into the sunset is beyond me. I mean, he's just not going to do it. But what we have to think about is David's state of mind right now. You've just come through a civil war with your son. This man killed your son. You're grieving over your sin. You're grieving over your son. Uh, you don't know what's going to happen with your nation. You got 10 tribes warring against you. I mean, can you imagine having that kind of pressure on you? And so see, Joab knows all that. Joab knows exactly where David's vulnerable. And so let's read verse 9. And actually, we're going to get done early because I only went through verse 9. We may go ahead and read some more, but all right. And at verse 9, and Joab said to Amasa, art thou in health, my brother? So, in other words, he's giving him a nice greeting. Hello, how are you? Art thou in health, my brother? That means, how are you? And Joab took Amasa by the beard with the right hand to kiss him. All right, there's that, that some of the Europeans do, right? And but that's weird that he took him by the beard. Took him by the beard to kiss him. So this is some kind of family greeting, I guess. And but remember we talked about in Freedom Readers about the kiss of betrayal. Who else gave a kiss? And Judas. And then who did we see in the Old Testament that gave? We talked about it in Freedom Readers. That gave that kiss of betrayal. Now I can't think who it was. Um, I can't think, but we talked about it. Maybe I'll think of it in a minute. So yeah, that's weird. That's weird. Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts now. Who that was? All right, verse 10. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand. See, because he didn't look at him as a threat. And and okay, but Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand, so he smote him therewith in the fifth rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground, and struck him not again, and he died. So Joab and Abishai his brother pursued after Sheba the son of Bichri. All right, so they got rid of the adversary. That's what Joab saw him, as his adversary. All right, and then they go after Sheba, the son of Bichri, the one who is trying to lead Israel astray. And one of Joab's men stood by him and said, He that favoreth Joab, and he that is for David, let him go after Joab. All right, so one of Joab's men told all the people with him, He that favoreth Joab, and he that is for David, let him go after Joab. And verse 12, and Amasa wallowed in blood in the midst of the highway. So in other words, he's still alive. He didn't die right away. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he removed Amasa out of the highway into the field, and cast a cloth upon him, when he saw that every one that came by him stood still. And when he was removed out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue after Sheba, the son of Bichri. So it seems to me everybody's still loyal to Joab, but it seems to me that Joab is still somewhat loyal to David, right? Because he's going after Sheba, that's trying to destroy the nation. Verse 14, and he went through all the tribes of Israel unto Abel, and to Beth Makkah, and all the Berites, and they were gathered together and went also after him. So he's gaining momentum. He's getting more and more men from Judah to go with them to fight Israel. And they came and besieged him in Abel at Bethmelech. So he besieged Sheba, and they cast up a bank against the city, and it stood in the trench. So they're having trench warfare. And all the people that were with Jacob battered the wall to throw it down. Then cried a wise woman out of the city, Hear, hear, say, I pray you, unto Joab, Come near hither, that I may speak with thee. And when he was come near unto her, the woman said, Art thou Joab? And he answered, I am he. Then she said unto him, Hear the words of thine handmaid. And he answered, I do hear. Then she spake, saying, They were wont to speak in old times, saying, that they shall surely ask counsel at Abel. And so they ended the matter. I am one of them that are peaceable and faithful in Israel. Thou seekest to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why wilt thou swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? And Joab answered and said, far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. The matter is not so, but a man of Mount Ephraim, Sheba, the son of Bichri by name, hath lifted up his hand against the king, even against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. And the woman said unto Joab, Behold, his head shall be thrown to thee over the wall. Then the woman went out unto all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and cast it out to Joab. And he blew a trumpet, and they retired from the city, every man to his tent. And Joab returned to Jerusalem unto the king. Now Joab was over all the host of Israel, and Benaniah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and over the Pelethites, and Adoram was over the tribute, and Jehoshaphat the son of Helud was recorder. and Shiva was scribe, and Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, and Ira also the Jerite was a chief ruler about David. So it's just so like I said, that's as far as I got. So we'll expound on that a little next week. But so we got seeing Joab is still faithful to David. Now Sheba's got his head cut off, which hopefully will end the rebelliousness of Israel, but we'll see. And then it's just showing us who was in control of the government. Okay, who all David's rulers were. So that's we're ending 5 minutes early, but we'll backtrack a little bit and go over some of that next week, and then we'll see how this soap opera continues to play out.
I was thinking about Joab, and then he kind of looking at it, and of course I could put the kids on my post out, but like David's not thinking right. I just killed his son, and that's the best thing for him, and I just did this.
I think that's a great possibility because we still see that he's loyal to David. Now you would think he would like, oh, I'm going to show you, and and maybe side with Israel, but he doesn't. But
David just had a son, and I just killed his son, so he's just not thinking.
But we have to consider Joab is almost as powerful as David is. And he's got all this loyalty of the army. So he could have switched sides easily, and gone and fought against David with Israel, but he doesn't. But yeah, he's an interesting character. And really he shows you, what men in power do.
And he's not a man after God's own
No, not at all. He's a warrior.
You can kill somebody and take them out for the best of the country or whatever.
Exactly. So he's not after God's own heart, but yeah, God's, I think, possibly we'll see using him, to keep the nation together. But we know they're going to divide after Solomon, and so this is that ancient argument that's never going to go away, and and uh, and then we're going to see the rest of the Old Testament is them divided. And you can't understand all that if you don't understand the division and understand why they were under two kings and understand why they divided. So this is really important that we get this so we can understand the rest of the Old Testament. So
like
a house divided cannot stand. And then Israel is taken by enemies, and then a few years later, then Judah is. And then that's the end of Israel until 1948. Which is absolutely amazing. Just, just, just stunning. And just like we learned in Freedom Readers, Esau became a mighty nation. They became the Edomites, and they warred against Israel. And really, he was more powerful than Jacob. He became more powerful than Jacob. And yet, who's still around? Jacob. Jacob's descendants are still in Israel and became a nation in 1948. Esau is gone. All his descendants were absorbed by all the Arab nations. So they are no longer a people, but Jacob is, because God had a covenant. So I tell you, just that one fact, if you don't believe anything, you don't believe there's a God, just study Israel. Just look at Israel. And that one fact proves that God exists. They're the only one. There's never been a nation that has survived in their identity after being taken over like that, like Israel. They were completely dispersed. Nobody. There is not one. And yet they are a nation today.
We were talking yesterday. He said all of it that like the workout, scientifically alternative. He took all of that and just looked at the facts, not just things, but just and everything that happened that they said would happen. And what does that call it, right? And everything is just not a prediction.
Well, prophecy.
See what's fulfilled and specifically how that that's possible. And if you just put that, it should give you enough faith to believe in that. Like nobody else does.
But see, the problem is nobody thinks today. Nobody gives any thought to it. No, or they just, like we were talking about in your class, that these young people, they just think when they die they're going to be worm food. Well, I don't really like that idea. So I'm not going to adhere to that idea because that doesn't appeal to me. But see, they'll find something that does appeal to them and they'll go with that, and it's not based on any truth or any facts because they don't know how to think anymore. And I just heard something about they said colleges, universities are having a major problem with kids coming into these universities who cannot read. Cannot read. Now, how in the world did they get to college if they can't read? And yet they are. And they said they cannot comprehend if it's over, so many pages, they can't comprehend it. Oh, no child left behind. Oh, and one of David's professors, he was telling their class that he hates the United States and he wants to go live in Japan. So Jeff told him, "Wait till you get your grade, and it's set in stone. You got the proof of it, and then go hand him $20. And when he asks what that's for, you tell him that's for your plane trip to Japan." I mean, we'll take up a donation and send you, right? I mean, we don't need those people in our universities. That's what's wrong with our kids. And this ridiculous teaching and like he said, he was in Germany taught that your parents don't know anything, they're old, that don't listen to your parents, they're antiquated, not that. He said that's what they were taught. And so he had a real problem with older people because he thought they didn't know anything. Yeah, it's real. It's